Welcome to another Magnolia release walkthrough from PM team. On Friday we released Magnolia 5.4.6. So it falls to us. We get to have the honor of presenting the new features that the product developers and product development team put together. So thanks to the team who actually did the work. And we want to do these regularly just to basically keep you all up to date on what's happening, even in the small releases where a lot of new cool features are actually landing. So without further ado, 5.4.6, the focus is on definition decoration, internationalization, and usability. And we're just going to be showing you the most demoable features. There's obviously a lot more in the release that we won't have time to show you today. So we'll start with the improvements to light development. So it's actually a very significant step with light development. As you know, with light development, we introduced a really slick new way of working with Magnolia, but we didn't cover all of the functionality that's available with a Maven module. And one of the main things that's been missing with light development, with the YAML files, is twofold. It has not been possible to change something that's brought in by a YAML definition. So if you've used a YAML file to create an app in one module, no other module can change that. It's just locked. Which is difficult, for example, it's basically what you would have used JCR bootstraps for if it was a JCR configuration. So that was one problem, that you couldn't change something that was created by YAML. The other problem was that in a light module, in this new really slick, easy way of working, it also from there wasn't possible to change any other module. So that was just something you haven't been able to do up till now. That's been a limitation. But with this new feature called definition decoration, that's changed. So let me show you how that works. So we have a Magnolia instance running, and let's say I want to add I have a light module, and I want to add a new component, a map, and I want that to be available in the travel demo. Now, of course, I could go in and download the travel demo and actually change the travel demo code to make a component available, but that's quite difficult and not very elegant. What you want to be able to do is provide a new module that makes your new component available in an existing module. So let's just look at so if I I go to a page. Let's go to the company page, just to show you that it's not available now. If I add a component, okay, I have carousel and all sorts of other stuff, but there's no map here. So let's add that now. So I have Magnolia running. Here's my console, so we can see when it comes in. And here I'm going to use light development to bring this in. So I'm sorry it's not bigger over here. I'll tell you what I'm doing. Maybe you can read it. Basically, I have a light modules directory, which is connected to the instance. And so far, I just have one module in there, which relates to Anti's demo. But I have a new component that I'll bring in with this module. So up till now, I've only had the possibility of providing that component in the templates directory. But now I have this new option, the decorations directory. And the cool thing about the design is that right in the file system, I can already very quickly see which other modules I'm decorating. So right in the decorations directory, I see travel demo. Okay, I'm making a change to the travel demo, to a template, to a component, and to a page. And here I can see in the file name that I'm going to be changing the available components. And if I look at that file, this is exactly the YAML that I'm adding. It's coming from the map component, and I'm adding this new component map. So all I have to do to bring this to start using this component is drag this into my light modules directory. And now if I look at the console, I can see that it's already picked up all these new definitions. And if I go into Magnolia, I'll just refresh that page. And now if I add a component, so here's my map. So I've been able not only to very easily create a component, I've been able to modify another module with a decoration to make it available. And you'll see another example of this from Antti. That's what this other little Antti demo shows. There he's actually using decoration not to make something available, but to add a tab to an existing component. So that's very powerful. The cool thing is that not only are we making up for functionality that didn't exist yet in light development, we're actually making this feature of modifying other modules much more elegant and powerful than it was with bootstraps. So for one thing, with bootstraps, the thing wasn't readable, right? We all know that. That's one of the key benefits of YAML. You can see what you're working with. You can edit it. It's not a jumble of XML. But the other thing that's really interesting is that with JCR bootstraps, the old way that you would change things from other modules, you could only change something that was in JCR. So if something was brought in with Blossom, there was no way to change it. Now, with the new decoration framework, you can change something whether it's brought in by YAML, whether it's brought in by JCR, or whether it's brought in by code and by Blossom. So you can change anything that's in a registry. The other really cool thing, like with all light development, not only is it easy to add something, it's easy to remove it. So when you had JCR bootstraps, you were actually modifying the repository, and those changes were basically stuck in your code, even if you took that module away. With the decoration, if you take the decoration away, your change is gone. Yeah, so that's the overview of decoration. The other two things I wanted to point out is a very significant improvement in internationalization. So previously, it wasn't possible to provide translations with a light module, but now, again, it's not very visible, but in any light module, I simply need to include an IE10N directory, and I can include any message bundles there. So it's very easy to include and change translations with a light module. And I'll show you this later when I get back to the MTK that in practice. Yeah, then the third thing, just I want to say, every new release we're improving the resource loading, and that's the same with 5.4.6. So now with the resource loading, if you add a definition, okay, it's added, but now you can also, if you remove something, if you rename something, that change will automatically be picked up and the system will reflect that. I'm not going to demo it, I just wanted to mention it. And with that, I turn it over to Antti for the next section.
And so I'll show you 3 user experience improvements. It's not only bug fixing, but also very visible changes for editors. And we'll start with the page editor and adding freedom to where you add components in an area. You may have seen in that component dialog that Topher had there, you now can add components either to the bottom of the area or as the first component in it. And here's a good page where I can demonstrate it. This members section has a protected member content page, and this is intended as kind of a news page, inside news for members of this site. And when I select an area and add a component, in the dialog we have these new options. I can add it either before the first or after the last. And this before the first is an example of where news are typically in a chronological order. You might want to put the freshest news at the top. You can see here that we're kind of teasing the audience that there's a new collection of Spanish tours coming. I can choose to add a component to the top to say the tours are now available. Let's show that. For example, like that. And this story will go further so that we will give editors more freedom about where they want to place the component before or after a particular one. But for now, this is a significant improvement for those news-like pages. The next usability improvement has to do with activation icons, the publishing status. Here you see that I have a collection of pages where some are already published, the familiar green dot, but unpublished pages are now an empty red circle, and modified pages look like a target. And with this change, we target users who are maybe colorblind, who have impaired vision, because if you take color out of the picture, you can still understand what is going on. And to roughly demonstrate that, I'm going to take a screenshot here of all those icons and find it on the desktop. It's this guy here. Now, if I take the color information out of this picture by cranking the saturation to 0, you'll see that you still understand what's going on. The solid dot is good, published. Empty is it never went to the public instance or has been deleted, and the target is something is changing, a moving target, if you will. The third usability improvement has to do with persistence of links. This is an improvement that comes directly from a partner. So it's an example of where we listen to client feedback. When you work with CK editor links, it can be a bit of a pain to figure out if the link is going to the right place. Here, let's edit this text and image component and add a few CK editor links. I select the word and I link to another Magnolia page. I'm going to choose a page that is kind of fairly deep down in the hierarchy. Let's choose like a 4th level page there. And another word where we link to an asset in the DAM, also deeper down. Let's take that one. Now, going back and editing those links used to be a little bit unfriendly. Now I can double click and I'm taken directly to the deep structure and to the selected item that I had before. And the way this used to work is I was taken to basically this situation. Nothing is selected, I'm at the top of the tree. Is my link pointing to the right directory, right file? I have to dig down. Same thing with the DAM link, double click, and the actual target is chosen. And the why this makes it easier for editors is it's easier to check that the link has the right target, and if it's not correct, then in all likelihood the correct target is somewhere in the vicinity. It's near where I have misclicked. All right, with these 3 usability improvements, I hand it back to Topher for a while.
Thanks, Antti. Yeah, I just wanted to get back to the MTK in this section. So the Magnolia Templating Kit has seen a few significant improvements in this release. The first part of it is actually a continuation of the internationalization story. I mentioned that you can include those with light modules. Now, the other big improvement with internationalization is that the new translation framework using key generators, you can now use it for everything. And with that step, we've gone ahead and implemented using the key generators in MTK. And this really applies, I think, to the light development story as well, because it makes the YAML configuration so much simpler not to always have to provide those keys. Let's take a look at that. So this is the link list from the MTK. You don't need to understand everything, but you can see that I have the title, I have the description, and these things are really not super necessary. They're just identifying the key to get the translation, and you can see the pattern is quite straightforward. Components, okay, it's a component, linked list, areas, label. We could actually use a convention instead of having to configure that every time. Also down at the bottom, we have this ITN base name, a title, a description. Same thing, so we could use a convention here. Why do we need to provide this in every single template? It's just extra work, and I think it makes it harder to read. So if we get rid of all those, as we have in MTK and in the travel demo, you can see that the definition is much lighter. We don't need to define those things anymore. We can just use the convention. I think this is even more dramatic when we start looking at dialogues. So here's the dialogue for that same component. It looks almost intimidating how it was before. Now this is how it looks now. It's just much easier to read. I can just very quickly see my tabs, see my fields, see what's in my fields. Now if we could just get rid of these long field names and get rid of these actions at the bottom, but let's save that for another release. So that's the improvements for internationalization. And then we have a few new components, which I can show you in the page editor. So I created just a simple empty page. We have 3 new components. Actually, the image component was in the last release, but we didn't mention it, so I'm just mentioning it now. It's very straightforward. It's just a very simple component to add an image, as you would expect from the name. We can also add captions and the like. Another new component is the page intro. And this is an interesting component because it doesn't need any configuration. The idea with a page intro is that it's actually exposing the configuration of the page itself. So when you create a page, you already enter in information about that page, whether it's just the title or maybe you give it an abstract. Maybe a page could even have an image. And the page intro component, you just add it to the page and it can expose all of that information to the page. The last new component is essentially migrated from the travel demo into the Magnolia Templating Kit, so it's available for any project. It's quite a nice component because it's quite flexible. It covers many of the typical needs when you embed a video. So let's just choose an asset. The one that's in the travel demo, actually, I'll use. And then, again, I can provide a caption. And if I don't provide this manually, it's taken from the asset itself. And it has a nice feature, which is you can change how it should behave in the page. So I can have it to scale to fill the container width for a responsive website. So there, it fills the whole width of the container. Or if I want to adjust the original pixels, I can say that it shouldn't scale. Oops. Oh yeah, okay, it's too big for the page. So because it's not scaling, it gets wide. And you can see it has the caption at the bottom, both the one that I added and the thing coming from the asset itself. But the component really is even more flexible. I can also use an embed code, but still use the caption, still use the scaling feature of the component. So let's grab a video from YouTube. You can grab an embed code. And yeah, I have Kenny logins in my website. So that is the new components and the new changes in the MTK.
I'll finish off with showing a couple of the bug fixes. These relate to fields, and then the new tools that have been brought in from the legacy tools. So the reason I want to show a couple of bug fixes is this is a maintenance release, and these were issues that were reported by partners and clients, and I'm going to demonstrate an issue with field validation. It's a small issue, but it shows that we listen. Here I have a page that is based on the very basic page template that MTK ships with. And as Toffer mentioned earlier, I have decorated a dialog that is used on this page. I'm going to add a component, text and image component on the page, and typically text and image component doesn't have this third tab, event. I've added this using decoration, and it has a fairly complex multi-value field. And to explain this field, I'll do this. So here's my multi-value field, and it consists of several switchable fields. Each of these are switchable fields. And the issue with this was, if one of these fields, or many of them, were, for example, required, or had some other validation criteria, the validation error wasn't pinpointed to this field. I have, especially if I'm in this show all view, I have quite a lot of fields on this view. 3 tabs are staggered one after the other. And when I have an error, I can't pinpoint where it was. So let's see how it works now. You can see that I can enter either a plain text or a rich text description for any of these events. I'm going to take out that middle one. It's a mandatory field, so I should get an error when I save. And this is the kind of error that I get. At the very top of the dialog, I get a count of the errors. And the actual erroring field is circled in red, highlighted, and here I give it an even more specific error. There's a problem with your plain description because it is required. Now contrast that to how this used to work or didn't work. Here's the multi-validation error from 5.4.5. I just got a message at the top. I have a long dialog with lots of fields, but no idea which is the erroring field. I think it's a lot more user-friendly now. I can pinpoint the error and go and fix it. Another small change is, I can demonstrate this in the same component. When you have a switchable field like this that switches between 2 or more options, what I type or as content in the option that I don't select, now I don't select rich text, that go with plain text instead, is not persisted to the repository. We discard that value from the other option. And the reasoning behind this is that this is just confusing when you go to the JCR and look at the stored values. By looking at that level, you can't tell which one of these did the user choose to save. You see values for both properties and can't tell which is the right one. So now we discard the not selected one. And we'll finish off with a few new tools. These are apps that you'll find here in the tools group. Log tools is the first one. This is an app that combines the old log viewer legacy tool and the logging legacy tool. They were legacy apps that looked still like 4.5, so we've gone for consistent look. Looks not like Magnolia 5 now, and also consolidation, so that all similar apps are kind of sub-apps in the same app. It requires fewer tiles in the tools group, and you can find similar tools in the same place. So you probably know this functionality already. You can view any of these logs right here in place. Select the log and click view. Or if you want to search or inspect it more carefully, then download the file. And here on the log levels tab, you can set a logging level for a particular class or a package and get more information about it. The use case, for example, could be that you have an error with mail sending, but you're not quite sure which class is erroring, which package is erroring, and it isn't providing enough level of information. So come here, search for the mail related classes, increase their logging level from info to error, or for example, and reproduce the error. Now in the log you have more information. So that was log tools. The second tool is JZR tools. Here we've also consolidated the old JZR queries app, XML export, and XML import into one app. Probably familiar with this. I can issue JZR queries, for example. And pull content from the repository for digging out. So here's a list of pages, for example. The dumper is similar to a database dump, where I can take a particular workspace and look at its content at a given level of depth. And finally, the exporter and importer are, you can export the content of a workspace into XML and, for example, do search and replacement in the XML file if you need to. That concludes the demo. I hope you liked the walkthrough. If you have questions on any of these features, let us know now or type later. If you want to know anything more about the release, also the features that I didn't mention today, check out the release notes. They're thoroughly described there.
Yeah.
All good?
Yeah.
Thank you.